swapping seats today. Corey is leading. I am listening. Gate asks, Corey, go.
Tayo. Thanks, Erica. Energy is a learning tool. I brought a lot of it. Let us move.
What if I told you that a veteran and a rater could be looking at the exact same injury, the exact same medical records, and the veteran could walk away with either a 40% rating or a 10% rating, just because of how a single condition was named on the claim form? That is not a hypothetical. It happens constantly. Last episode, we covered the pyramiding rule and how symptom overlap affects rating combinations. Today, we go upstream, to the moment before the rating even begins. How you name your condition on VA, Form 21-526-EZ shapes everything that follows.
Think of it like a postal sorting facility. The condition name you write is the address on the envelope. The VA uses it to route your claim to the right examiner, apply the right diagnostic code, and pull the right section of the rating schedule. Give it a vague or wrong address, and your claim goes to the wrong room.
There is a legal protection in place called the duty to sympathetically read your claim. The VA is required to consider all reasonably raised theories of entitlement based on what you wrote. But reasonably raised has limits, and if your description is too vague, important conditions may never be flagged at all.
The good news is that getting the naming right is learnable. And once you understand how diagnostic codes work and why your language triggers them, you will never look at a claim form the same way.
Before the content, a quick team intro.
Professor Erica, co-host today. My rule for myself, ask, do not lecture.
Mark is here. Failure reps outnumber success reps in every honest practice.
Kai here. Good optimization feels honest. Bad optimization feels like a trick.
Isabella here. I love the ones where the little detail changes everything.
Perfect mix of voices today. Let us dive.
Here is how the pipeline works inside the VA. When a rater gets your claim, they look at your condition description, compare it to the examination findings, and then select a diagnostic code from the schedule for rating disabilities. That code determines which rating table they use.
And different diagnostic codes have completely different maximum ratings. Limitation of flexion of the knee. Diagnostic code 5260 maxes at 30% at the range is extremely limited. But knee instability under diagnostic code 5257 maxes at 30% too, but rates differently at lower severities. The code choice changes what you receive at every severity level.
There is also the examiner routing issue Erica mentioned. The VA schedules your C&P exam based on the type of condition claimed. Claim knee pain, generically, and you might get a general practitioner. Claim limitation of flexion, left knee, post-access control list repair, and you get an orthopedic specialist who knows exactly what to measure.
Marcus is raising something that does not get enough attention. The examiner's qualifications affect the quality of the DBQ they complete, which directly affects your rating. An orthopedist measures range of motion with a goniometer. A general practitioner may just note knee pain present. Same veteran, wildly different exams.
So the entire chain, code, examiner specialty, rating table, final percentage, is triggered by the words on your claim form. That is the mechanism. Once you understand it, the naming decisions become obvious rather than accidental.
Let us get concrete about language choices. There are two categories, symptom language and diagnosis language. Symptom language is broad. Back pain, headaches, knee hurts. It tells the VA something is wrong but leaves the diagnostic code assignment almost entirely to the examiner.
Diagnosis language is specific. Limitation of flexion, left knee, lumbosacral strain, bilateral tinnitus, major depressive disorder secondary to PTSD. These phrases map directly to diagnostic codes. When you write one of these, you are essentially telling the VA exactly which rating table applies.
The rule of thumb I use with veterans is this. If you have a confirmed diagnosis from a physician, use the clinical name. If you do not have a diagnosis yet, use clear symptom language that describes the functional limitation. Do not make up a diagnosis you do not have, but do not undersell a real diagnosis either.
The secondary condition format is worth calling out separately. When you claim something as secondary to an already service-connected condition, you write the secondary condition first, then the primary. For example, GERD as secondary to service-connected PTSD medications. That exact phrasing tells the VA to look for the causal link.
I want to ask Erica something. When veterans come to you having already filed with the wrong language, what is the most common mistake you see? The most common mistake I see is what I call the body part claim. My knee, my back, my shoulder. No laterality, no functional description, no clinical language. I worked a case where a veteran had documented access control list reconstruction in his right knee and wrote knee pain on his claim form. The examiner rated him for general arthritis instead of specific limitation of motion.
Erica, that matches what I see in the data. Laterality is a huge one. My knees versus my left knees versus bilateral knees leads to 3 completely different rating outcomes. The schedule for rating disabilities assigns separate ratings for each side. If you do not specify, the rater may only rate 1.
The PTSD plus depression double filing trap is another classic. Marcus and I covered earlier how pyramiding prevents getting paid twice for the same mental health symptoms. Filing PTSD and MDD as separate claims when your symptoms are identical does not give you 2 ratings. It gives you a pyramiding denial.
The secondary linkage mistake is the costliest. A veteran with service-connected knee arthritis develops hip pain from walking with a limp for 10 years. If they file the hip separately without writing as secondary to service-connected knee arthritis, the VA treats it as a completely independent condition.
And at that point, they need a nexus to service for the hip itself, which most veterans do not have. So they lose entirely. 4 words would have changed everything.
And that hip rating would have sailed through as secondary. All it needed was 4 words, as secondary to service, connected. Turns out the form is not bureaucratic noise, it is the actual lever that controls your outcome.
Let us get specific about secondary condition language. The format is straightforward. Write the secondary condition first, then the linking phrase, as secondary to service connected, then the primary condition. If you believe the condition is being worsened rather than caused, you substitute aggravated by for as secondary to.
Some of the most powerful secondary claims I see involve PTSD as the primary. Sleep apnea caused by PTSD sleep disruption, GERD caused by PTSD medications, hypertension caused by chronic PTSD stress, all of these can be filed as secondary claims. But each needs its own nexus letter connecting the dots.
When in doubt about specificity, claim broadly with good symptom language and let the VA's duty to assist work for you. The VA must make reasonable efforts to obtain relevant medical records and schedule examinations. A clear, honest description of your functional limitations, even without a clinical name, triggers that duty.
Think of it like this. Your claim form is the floor, not the ceiling. Describe what is wrong in the clearest possible language, and the VA is required to examine and rate every condition you have raised.
What kills claims is not insufficient knowledge. It is descriptions so vague that nothing is actually raised. Marcus nailed it. The floor metaphor is exactly right. I love that framing. The claim form as a floor, not a ceiling. Write what you know, as precisely as you know it, and let the duty to assist elevate from there. Stick around because the next scene covers what you do when you have already filed with the wrong language. If you have already filed with imprecise naming and your claim is still pending, you can submit an amendment to clarify the condition description before a decision is made. Contact the VA and clarify in writing which condition you are actually claiming. Document it. The rater will use the most complete version of your claim.
If the decision has already come down with the wrong code applied, a supplemental claim is your path. You file with new and relevant evidence, in this case, a DBQ or nexus letter that establishes the correct condition and its connection to service. A private medical opinion using precise diagnostic language is often enough to get the code corrected.
The gold standard, as Erica and Isabella both know from experience, is having a VSO review your claim language before you submit. A good accredited VSO or claims agent will look at your description, compare it to the diagnostic codes they know, and rewrite ambiguous language into code-specific terms. That single step prevents most of the naming mistakes we covered today.
Kai is absolutely right. I tell every veteran I work with, do not submit that form alone. The VA process rewards precision, and precision is a skill most veterans have never been taught.
Isabella and Marcus said it well. You earned these benefits. There is no honor in letting ambiguous language stand between you and what is yours. If you forget everything else in this video, remember, the name you write on that form is the address that routes your claim. It determines the code, the examiner, and the rating table. What naming mistake have you seen or made yourself? Drop it in the comments.
Kai, it is quiz time. Let's find out what stuck, TASE. Think through each question carefully before you answer.
Drop a like if we earned it, and subscribe so you never miss the next episode.
Why does the specific language used to describe a condition on V of Form 21526EZ significantly affect the rating outcome? The correct answer is D. Because the description triggers assignment of a specific diagnostic code which determines the rating table, the examiner specialty, and the maximum possible rating.
Tarched, what is the correct format for filing a secondary service connection claim on VA Form 21526EZ? The correct answer is B. Write the secondary condition first, followed by the phrase "as secondary to service connected." Then name the primary service connected condition.
A veteran's claim was decided using the wrong diagnostic code because the condition was described too vaguely. Which action is most likely to correct this? The correct answer is B. File a supplemental claim with a new private medical opinion that uses precise diagnostic language and establishes the correct condition and its service connection.
If you take one step after today, pull up your rating decision and look at the diagnostic codes assigned. Then ask whether they match what you actually described. A mismatch is correctable. You built these benefits over years of service. 3 years from now, you will be glad you took the time to verify.
Next episode, the one rating most veterans who had surgery never claimed. A temporary 100% that is retroactive to the date of your procedure and is waiting in the VA's own regulations right now.
See you next time.
Subscribe so you catch that one. The best engineers are the ones who never stopped asking why, and Liam would agree. Curiosity about this system pays dividends.
E. Energy is earned. Bring yours to the next one too.
Well done, Corey. I might let you do this more often. Professor Erica, signing off.